and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Destiny Jones. Destiny is a full-time college student studying criminal justice, and she is also a guardsman. But more importantly, what we talk about today is Vet Talk. She has created an amazing organization that is helping veterans and service members every day. So jump into this conversation with us where we talk about what is Vet Talk, how do they help, and how can you get involved to help Destiny's mission. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. I'm really excited to get to hear more about your story.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
I met you at an American Legion conference, I believe it was last year, and I'll be super honest, I had a booth downstairs, and my friend was like, "Hey, you need to get upstairs right now. You've got to hear what this girl is talking about." So I said, "Okay." And the room was packed, so I was like standing in the hallway with like my head just kind of peeking in and listening to you, and I saw your flyer, and I thought, "This is amazing. This is the stuff that the boots on ground work in suicide prevention is just so cool, and it's cool to get to hear people's stories and how they got started." So I would love to pass it over to you so you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we can tell our listeners more about the amazing work you're doing and how you are a champion of hope.
All right. Yeah, so I'm 22 years old. I joined the military at 17. I'm still currently in, so I'm on my 6th year in my contract. So how I started this business before I went AGR, which is active guard, I was working for a company called Champ VA, and that's the insurance company for veterans families, if you're 100% disabled. And I got a phone call one day. It was May of 2023. And I got a phone call from a veteran who was checking his insurance benefits for his daughter.
Mhm.
After I gave him the benefits, he wanted to open up about something, but then he was just kind of like, well, never mind. And I was like, I'm in the military, I get it, so if you want to vent to me, like I'll just sit here and listen. He went on about how he had alcohol and drug abuse problems, and he felt like it was his fault that his daughter was in a mental hospital, because she was suicidal. He used to be suicidal. He vented probably about a good 30, 40-ish minutes, and I just sat there and listened. And at the end of the phone call, he thanked me, and he was like, I've never had someone just listen to me vent, and I appreciate it. And then he said that there were many of us out there and to please fix it. And then it got me thinking on what I could do to help veterans who do feel like I just want somebody to listen. Being in the military, coming from a military background, that's one thing I've always heard from my parents and my uncles. Like, nobody really just listens. And sometimes a veteran just wants someone to listen. They don't want to be admitted to a mental hospital. They don't want to take medicine. They just need to vent to a battle buddy. And that's how I got started in Vet Talk.
I think that's huge. That's one of the things that I tell people all the time when I'm teaching them about suicide interventions is of all the suicide interventions that I've ever done, almost all of them just needed someone to validate the pain that they had experienced. And I think we're so quick to assume that we're going to make these deep connections and bonds by sharing pain rather than validating pain. And it's very different. It's almost like a one-up story. Like, let me tell you something bad. Oh, yeah, let me tell you something bad that's kind of the same. And oh, we're going to bond over this. And really, it's like, no. Sometimes you're the only person that person was able to talk to. Like you said, you're talking to this guy and he had this thing that he wanted to talk about. He's like, "Oh, never mind." And you're like, "No, like, tell me what's going on." You might be the first person to just take some time and give that person some space. And I think that's huge that communication is the greatest success, but it can be the greatest downfall. So I'm so excited about this vet talk because I think a lot of veterans, myself included, there's times where we say, "Oh, someone else has it worse off than me," right? These services are for someone else. Let me save them for someone else. But really, that's not the case. And it's okay. We all have our own burdens, we all have our own struggles that we go through, right? And we all need support as a community, whatever that looks like. And sometimes it's just hearing from someone else saying, like, yeah, man, that really sucks. So this is so cool that you got this phone call and this guy said, hey, I hope you're able to do this for other people. And you said, okay, what can I do? So let's dive into how did that happen from there once you figured out, or how did you go about finding out this is what you wanted to do to make that change?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to start a business, but I was like, well, I'm not really good at making things, I'm not really sure, I've always thought that I'd maybe do my own like in-home daycare one day, which honestly is still on my mind, but later down the line when I can actually buy a house. And so the first thing I actually did after I got off work that day was I called my mom. My mom also served in the army, and I was, talking to her about it. And, she was like, yeah, it's been this way since I was in. She was in back in, I was born in 2002. So I want to say she got in probably 1998 around that time frame. Um, and she was like, it's always been this way. I talked to my uncles about it who served, and it was just a common thing. And then I asked them, I was like, if there was one thing that you guys could change that veterans need help with, like what is it? And most of them said it is just needing somebody to listen. Um, so after that, I actually called my cousin. Her dad, my uncle was in the army as well for quite a while, I think 10 plus years, something like that. And I was like, hey, if I wanted to start a business, like, would you help me out? And she was like, well, what would you need me to do? And I was like, well, you're the genius at spelling, writing things, knowing how to make things sound professional. So I'm probably gonna need you like for anything professional, anything I have to write about, like I'm gonna need you to overview it. And she was like, yeah, and I told her my plan, and then for about a month, it was quiet. I didn't bring it up again. And then she messaged me and she was like, hey, so are you really serious about starting this business? And I was like, yeah, I just need to figure out where to start. So then I called my sister because she started a few businesses as well. And she was also in the military. And so it kind of just went from there, just communicating with my family. And then I made a post on Facebook. I needed somebody to, create a design for me. I wasn't really sure what I was looking for, wasn't sure what we were going to call it. And then I was like, well, maybe we'll just call it like veterans talk or something, or veterans chat. And then, me and my cousin were kind of coming up with ideas. And I was like, what about vet talk? Like kind of just so simple, and it kind of stands out a little bit more. And so that's really what got the ball rolling, was just, communicating with people. Hey, this is something I want to do. Where do I go? And then we just made it happen.
That's amazing that you had a support system you were able to reach out to and say, hey, I have this idea. Let me brainstorm with you. I think that's a big part that people miss when they have something. They either don't feel comfortable or aren't willing to be vulnerable and say, I have this idea and I want to talk it out and I want to make this go further. And you reached out to many people in your family and said, hey, this is my idea. This is what I want to do. And they were so supportive. It sounds like that's amazing. And good old Facebook, that's probably what I use Facebook for the most. I use a lot of like networking, but I'll make posts that say, hey, I need this or somebody needs this. Can somebody give me a referral or those kind of things? It's really great to be able to widen and broader the supports through the technology that we do have. And speaking of the technology that we do have, how has that really helped benefit the vet talk system?
Yeah, so the best part about technology being advanced as it is today is Vet Talk is just basically a Zoom meeting just like this. So all the veteran has to do is get on a computer, get on their phone, and we will do it just like this. It helps, especially now. I think in the future, I wouldn't mind actually doing some buildings, where people can come in, but it just makes it so much more convenient, to just sit here on a computer, on a phone to talk to somebody, especially if the weather's bad, like today with the snow outside. If you really need someone to talk to, then you can just get on here. And then even there's been a few times like a veteran has called my cell personally and was like, somebody referred me your number. I'm suicidal. I really need to talk to somebody. And usually we have a step process that we do. I will skip that process and I'll say, let me get one of my team members, but I'm going to stay on the phone with you until I find someone. And if I can't, I'll talk to you. And so that's also what's so great about it just being virtual is I can just get somebody in right away if need be, and I'm also a full-time college student. So a couple phone calls that I've gotten have actually been while I'm in class, and I'll answer it because I want to make sure, like, hey, I care, I'm here, I'm listening, but I'm in the middle of something, but let me get somebody who can help you. And if there's no team members, then I'll help you. My professors, I tell them each semester whenever I start a new class, I'm like, hey, just so you know, this is a business I've started. Sometimes my phone rings and it's somebody, suicidal, like I have to take it. Um, and part of the reason I do that is because a battle buddy of mine, he told me he's on the police force in OKC, and he told me that one time other officer had called multiple people, but it was just like such a busy day, nobody was able to answer their phone, and he ended up committing suicide just because not one person was able to answer and just talk to him. And so for me, it's important, like, to let them know, hey, I'm not ignoring you. I'm here. This is just a bad time, but let me see if I can get somebody for you. And if not, I will stop everything that I'm doing to listen to you because your life is more important than me grocery shopping for some food, or, me being in class listening to the professor for 3 hours because I don't want to listen to a professor for 3 hours anyway. So I will take this phone call for you, okay?
That's a really good point, is that oftentimes I hear that when people get to that point, because usually people get to the point of overwhelm and they start thinking about suicide and they take actions. 25% of people take actions within like 15 minutes. And now my brain is wanting to question that statistic that I just rambled off of. But it's rather quick. So people start reaching out. And if they can't get a hold of somebody on the line, then those thoughts of the overwhelm, those thoughts of suicide keep building and building and building. I always recommend that if people have never called a 24-hour number as well, to call it. To at least call when you're like today, when you get done listening to this episode, right? You can call it to see what it feels like in a calmer, more rational state of mind. Is it's good to know for yourself, but also for other people. So if you're helping someone else, there's many a times where if I've been able to do one in person, like you said, having a physical location can expand that. Most of my interventions have been done over the phone. It's somebody was posting something on Facebook and somebody else gave them my number, or I got in a three-way phone call, or, I got a LinkedIn message just the other day that was like, hey, I really need help. Are you available? And I was like, okay. So finding ways to be able to, yeah, like I want to be available to be able to help people. And for me, my cell phone number was put on a 24-hour crisis line website. And I remember that I got, it was three phone calls within 1 week, but one really stuck out to me. It was a kid about 9:30 at night. And I was not expecting that. I don't say like I wasn't prepared because in the moment I was like, oh, okay. I just kind of went into, all right, what's going on? Let's talk about it. And he ended up being fine. But I was so worried. I'm like, what if I'm one of those people that's in the middle of the night and I don't hear my phone and it goes off? So I ended up changing my voicemail to include like, hey, if I didn't answer, there must be some reason I didn't answer, but please be willing to reach out to a 988 number. I think that what you're saying though, like when people call and they actually get somebody like you, they get somebody who cares, that's a very valid point is, hey, I may be in the middle of something right now. What can we triage right now? Can we get you on the phone with someone else? Can we set up a time? Because that's also important, is a lot of times we just don't communicate that in general. Like if we just take random phone calls from people we've never met or people who are in a mental health crisis off the table and we just talk about calling our friend, we don't communicate enough to say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I just need to vent about something real quick. Or they think, oh, they're just calling to chit chat.
Mhm.
right? Being able to voice what we need out of that conversation up front, because a lot of us are doing a lot of things. I think that's really important. So I love that you do that. I'm just making that point as I'm rambling here. But I love that you're saying, hey, your life is important. I can talk to you right now. I can get you connected to somebody. We want to make sure that you're triaged, you're taken care of, and then you're getting the supports that you need. That's great. And with technology being so easily like that, you're able to reach a lot of more rural communities. I'm sure that's something that you see a lot, especially in the National Guard. I actually worked for the National Guard non-uniform side, but I was the suicide prevention program manager for a couple years. So I'm sure that's something you've experienced in the Guard is how far out a lot of these Guard units are in a lot of the small towns that they're coming from. What has been that relationship and dynamic of serving in the Guard with this vet talk? And do you get a lot of support on the Guard side of this as well as you got support from your professors in college?
Yeah, so whenever I first came, actually before I started building the business, I talked to my first sergeant about it. First Sergeant Matthews. I'm always gonna appreciate her and throw her out there because she allowed me to talk to the whole unit um about my idea and to do a survey to see, hey, is this a service you guys would use? I want to know where your guys' mindsets are at from E1 to the highest officer in the building. Like I want to know this before I start this. And she allowed me to do that. And I think that that was a big part of when I started to realize, okay, this is not just something, past soldiers are like, we need this. This is something that my first sergeant even is like, this is a great idea. My sergeant major talked to me. So it was really I have been getting support. And it makes me happy because, there's a lot of, oh, the military doesn't care about you, the military doesn't this. And I don't think it's that. I think it comes from, do you have a good line leadership? I so far have had the best leadership since I've been in, um, just with the support of everything. So after I did that first initial, talk with my unit and I got the, surveys back, it also asked them like, would you want to be a part of Vet Talk as a mentor? Do you have any advice? Do you think this is a great idea? And everybody, loved it. And I think for me, that was like, okay, and then going through and seeing that like the sergeant major, was like, yes, this is a good idea. And then like officers were like, they would want to be a part of it. That just made me realize like, okay, so it's not just like E1s to E4s that want to be a part of it. Like there's some higher ranks that are like, oh yeah, this is a good idea. I would want to be a part of this. So then, I think the American Legion was the first or second place that I had actually talked to once I started the business. And then back in, I want to say it was October, um, they were having a commanders meeting with all of the first sergeants and commanders in Oklahoma. And I was able to go and talk to them. And I got some phone calls and texts. They want me to come and talk to their units as well about vet talk. So it has been a lot of support. And then I just got to a new unit, and the first sergeant was like, "Hey, you need to talk about vet talk." And I was like, "How do you know about vet talk?" And he was like, "Well, I was at the commanders meeting, so I saw you." And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, "Okay." So it is like it's like an adrenaline, like, you know, a sergeant major just called me the other day and was like, "Hey, I want to, talk to you more about this and, get you into my unit to talk to my soldiers." And it's just like some days I'm like, okay, I'm not in uniform, but this is still a sergeant major. So, I still just call him sergeant major, even though I'm going in as vet talk, because it's like, it's kind of like that weird line of, okay, he's contacted me on a business thing, but at the same time, being in the military, the respect that they deserve. So it's still like, yes, Sergeant Major, I would love to come talk to your unit about vet talk, da da da. And so I've been getting a lot of support on the guard side, and I appreciate my first sergeants at both units, and all the officers that have allowed me to talk about it and listen to me and reaching out to me saying that they want to schedule a time for me to go and talk to their soldiers about it as well. This coin was actually given to me by the brigade sergeant major during Suicide Awareness Month, I had a table set up and he awarded me this coin. The second coin, that one was given to me actually by the tag, which is a 2-star general. He really liked my idea when he heard about it and he supported it. So overall, I would say that my business isn't just getting support from, similar ranks to me, but also higher up the chain of command as well.
That's amazing. I remember both my parents were Air Force, and they didn't want any of us to go into the military. They were like, no, they don't take care of their own. It was this kind of just this culture, this climate that just was so toxic. And I'm so proud of all the people who have put in work over the decades and like century of service to try and make things better. And I agree, leadership can definitely make something way more successful, or it can break down so many things. So it's amazing to hear that you have so much support throughout the entire guard too, not just even your direct line. That is amazing because not a lot of people have that.
Mhm.
And not just in the military, this is like all workforces, right? But I think that the culture is very different in the military versus corporate world. And I think we're starting to bridge some of those gaps and connections that leadership is more than what we have come to expect or what we have allowed to be in the military. It can be so much more. So this is just, it's super amazing to hear that, especially from my time as a contractor with the Guard and just seeing how much love and support you have for this program is amazing. I also agree when I worked, I wasn't in the Army, I was in the Marine Corps, but I worked under a colonel and it's still sir, right? That's still a colonel, still a sir. Even if that wasn't in my job description or my role, I would still say, hey, good to go. And I would go find somebody who could actually do the thing or who was responsible for the thing that he was asking for. So I think that shows a lot too, is you're serving our population, right? Service members and veterans, and still having that sense of respect for the individuals that are serving. I think that's super great. I love hearing this kind of like origin story, like how you got started and these different supports you had from your family and your leadership. And I would love for people to hear more. What exactly does Vet Talk do, and what all does Vet Talk provide? We've talked a little bit about it, but let's dive in a bit deeper.
The main thing with Vet Talk is, just talking to somebody. So it is a free service. It doesn't cost anything. You can use an hour of it, you can use 30 minutes of it. It doesn't cost. So basically you go on the website and you create an account, and then I verify that you are actually a service member. So this just kind of keeps it separate so that, non-service members are, getting onto this website trying to get free, just services in general. When you get to the home page, you can go to log in and it's going to have a sign up option. Now, whenever you get here, it is going to ask, are you a veteran or a service member? You click that box and submit it. What it does at that point is it'll send me an email saying, hey, so and so is requesting to join your website. And then I send an email and I say, hey, do you have like a DOD ID number? Like if they're currently in, or a picture of your veteran's ID, something that way I can verify you just to make sure. Some people, even just by talking to them, I can tell, that they're a service member. So sometimes I don't even go that route. If I'm able to just talk to you real quick and ask you questions like, hey, what branch did you serve in? What's your MOS, things like that. Especially if I say MOS. Most civilians, if you say MOS, they don't know what you're talking about. So if somebody was like, what's an MOS? I'd be like, yeah, okay. Clearly, you're not supposed to be here. So we'll just pretend like I did that part, I signed up, so and then I accept your request, and then you can come log in here. And once you log in, you do get a little bit more access to some other things as well that's on the website. So first with the booking, we do ask that you do a screening session first. And that's just for me to get information about you. That's for me to figure out, okay, what branch did you serve? What rank did you get out as? Or what rank are you currently? things like that. And the reason why I do that is because it's much easier to have a mentor who has something in common with you. So, yeah, our main common thing is that, okay, we're all military. Now let's break it down from there. My favorite one to say is I cannot relate to a Navy SEAL whose maybe traumatizing story is drowning in the ocean because I almost drowned in the pool once at 7 and I've never swum again. So that's like the most common that I can get. Like, well, yeah, dude, when I was 7, I almost drowned in a pool. I get it. That's not as scary as being in the ocean. That's a whole nother topic for another day. I can't do it. Once you set up your screening session, then you can go to online mentor services and it's going to take you here. Now, this will show, who's available. If you just want to see everybody, just to say, okay, well, I don't see, who I want to on here. When is Luke available? Check next availability. Well, it looks like he doesn't have any uploaded yet, so there's no telling, maybe he's just doesn't have time right now, He hasn't uploaded his time for this week, so he'll have to do that, of course. But that gives you a way to, okay, this is the person. Now, when we do our initial screening session, I will usually tell you, okay, this is a person I think will best, fit you based off the information you give me. If you decide to do a mentor session with Luke, and then you're like, you know what? I really, he wasn't bad, but I really just feel like we didn't connect. Can I try somebody else? That is an option as well. Because we want to make sure that you're comfortable and that you're able to be comfortable with venting to somebody. Because that's really all vet talk is. So we're not licensed counselors at all. We're just here to listen and help you out. So once you do that, you request a book, it'll send you a link and you'll hop on Zoom at that time. So one of the things I've been asked is, can I go over an hour? I say it's up to the mentor. If they don't have anybody after that 1 hour, if they don't have to, work at their regular job or anything like that, and they're willing to do more than an hour, then they can. I have had some do that where they do use more than an hour, and that's perfectly up to the mentor. They're going to get paid either way. Um, so that is something that is there. Now, one of the other services that we offer is VSO services. So we do have veteran service officers that are licensed that use Vet Talk. So this is also a way that if you can't get in, to the VA office because the line's longer, there's a long wait list, then if you come on here and there's time, then, you can request, one of our 2 people. So we do have 2 right now, Misty and River. So same thing. So she's got her time uploaded, and then same thing, you would just request that with her, and then, she'll help you with whatever you're needing help with. So that's one of the other services that we offer on our website. One of the other things that I have is we have a Meet the Mentors page. So on this page, you can kind of also read about some of our people. So Layla Martinez, that's actually my cousin, who I was telling you about, was one of the first people that I called. And then it kind of has a picture of everybody, tells you, what their MOS is, what the rank is, and then, just kind of a little bit about them. So this is another way if you just like, hey, I was going through the Meet the Mentor page and I would really like to talk to Jeffin because I feel like me and him have the most in common, then you can also request, that as well. Because it's going to be based off of what makes you the most comfortable. So on here, we have additional services as well. Now this shows, these are other veteran businesses as well. So the first one that we have on here is clothing and household items. So we have someone who gets donated a bunch of like clothing and household things that a veteran or a soldier was needing it, then I would reach out to them and say, hey, this is the size, this is what they're needing. And then if you live like 3 states over, I would just ship it to that person. So we also have a dog training. This is actually my mom's business. So she does simple, sit, stay. She does good with like helping dogs not to pull their owners, things like that. She doesn't do service dogs, but she can teach a dog to help you if you have anxiety and your like breathing starts changing. She knows how to train them to, help you out with that. Yeah, and then it does tell you a little bit about what they do here as well. And then like this one has a link to her Facebook. So if you wanted to go to her Facebook and see training videos or what she does, things like that, it'll take you there. And then we also have adopt a dog. So someone has connections with the hounds in Oklahoma, and basically she will give them to a veteran if a veteran's looking for a dog. So if you're looking for a dog and you can't afford one, we can help you out with that. Maybe you just need a emotional support animal or a service dog. We got you covered. Now this other one is Brown Legacy Insurance Agency. This is also another veteran. It tells you where he's licensed at, and then, where to request a quote and how to book a meeting with him as well. And then we have Legal Shield. This is another one where kind of just helps you with, if you have a divorce going on or basically anything that involves legal action. It's like $29.95 a month, and they have a 24-hour line for if you get a traffic stop and they're like, you ran that red light, and you're like, I definitely did not run that red light, and you need to call a lawyer. They have that. And then his Facebook is also on there. And then we have financial assistance. So he helps people that just finance, how to budget better, things like that. He's the one to talk to, and his Facebook page is also on there. We also have Family Guardian Life. He's licensed in 4 states. If you have any questions about that, then his contact information is also there. Now, this is a service dog training. So we talked about, just regular training. We also have service dog training. This website also shows his contact information, has his website on here so you can click on it and you were just going to contact with him. And this one is also at zero cost for the service dog training. And then we have Veteran Lifestyle Magazine. I actually have a magazine with the net, or an article with the net that she did a few months ago. She publishes articles that talk about mental health, that talks about her mental health journey, and then allows other people to share theirs. So that is great too for veterans that might just want to know, who else has the same story as me? Does anybody else have the same story as me? That would be a good one to look into. And then we have this one. This one is also for mental health as well. And this one shows the different things that she offers. And then it does have her website on here and then her contact information if you have questions about costs and things like that. Now, one thing that Vet Talk will do is if you can't afford something, we are in the works of having a system on, okay, one, verifying that you actually, can't afford something, because obviously we don't want to pay for something if you can do it. If you're actually like, I need to go into counseling, but I can't afford it. This is something that we're working on, is to get counselors one day on our actual website that we pay. We pay them. That way you don't have to pay them. So that is something, a little sneak peek in the works that we are working on. This part of our website has not been uploaded yet. This page is going to be our advice/statistic page. So for example, back in May, out of 20 veterans that I talked to, 15 of them have been deployed, 4 of those being diagnosed with mental health disorder, and 19 find it easier to talk to someone else who is in the military. And then I kind of just put some of the reasonings behind it. I do this because a lot of the times whenever I go up and do these talks, I do mention how these veterans that I talk to say, it's easier to talk to somebody else in the service. And then I kind of just have my own statistics to back up what I'm preaching. one of the other things whenever I do these surveys, it asks you if you were to give advice to a service member, what would it be? Usually, I tell them do it in the concept of mental health. So if you could give advice to a service member who's struggling with mental health, struggling with depression, struggling with suicide, what advice would you give to them? So, and this advice comes from real people. I don't put anybody's names on here, and that's just to protect them. So this comes from veterans, this comes from people currently in. So it's nice to kind of see the difference in some of the advice because veterans that have, been a veteran now 20 plus years, they might know, not might, they know a lot more than somebody that's just getting in, just filling their first contract that maybe you didn't even know that some of these things were options, getting in contact with the VA or things like that. So we got about 5 pages of that currently. And that's pretty much all that it is. It's just, here's the statistics from when I went and talked to this place. Here's some of the advice. So this is what the page will look like without kind of the editing part, right? And then down here at the bottom, you can just kind of go over, and then I also put this up here because this shows, hey, you're not the only person who's been deployed and has been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. You're not the only person that struggles with suicide, so there's great advice on here. Some of it like life is worth living, keep up the good fight. Some of it's, may not be call this person, do this. Some of it is just inspirational things. One of my favorite quotes to give is that it's not that you want to die, you just want the pain to stop, right? Um,
100%.
so, backstory on me, I used to be pretty suicidal when I was younger. And growing up today, I can definitely say that I feel like it's true that it's not that you want to die, you want the pain to stop. Because anytime I was suicidal, something bad happened and I was in pain. And I was like, I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I like life would be better if I was just not here. And when I was at basic, I lost a friend to suicide. I'm sorry, I'm about to cry. Um, I lost a friend to suicide while I was at basic, and we went through middle school and high school together. And I found out the day of graduation, and I just when I found out why he did it, I was like, he didn't want to die. He just wanted the pain to stop. But for him, it was just like the pain isn't going to stop. That's how he felt, and that's how a lot of people feel when they commit suicide as well. It's not going to stop, and I just want to say that it does get better. A lot of people, especially in high school, they're like, I'm getting bullied, this and that. A lot of school suicide comes from being bullied. Once you graduate, you don't even have to deal with these people anymore. So it does get better. But that is why I put this on here because I feel like it's important for people to know that you're not the only one that, you know, oh, my boyfriend broke up with me, I'm gonna go commit suicide. Like, I get it, okay? It sucks and it hurts, but it's not pain is only just for a little bit.
I think that's so true. That's something that I'm glad you made that connection too when you're saying it because I try and tell people that every day is that that's what suicides and overdoses, they're the same thing. People just want to end their pain. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We're just having a conversation with someone and sometimes validating that pain, recognizing that that pain is there makes it seem like, oh, I'm human. Someone else sees it. Someone else is validating that this is pain and this is what I'm going through and that it's real. I think a lot of times we get so overwhelmed and in the moment we we can't think outside that moment. And that's what I think about when it comes to suicide is it's that black box. It just closes you in darkness and you can't see the light. And sometimes you just need someone to crack open that box. And it could be someone like you answering the phone saying, I see you, I hear you, you are important. I want to hear what's going on with you. Giving people an opportunity and a chance to have those conversations are really life changing because there's so many people that just need to be heard and validated in that pain that they feel. And from there, maybe there's some other services, maybe there's some other resources that can connect the person to assist with that pain point going forward. But in that moment, just recognizing and acknowledging that bit of pain to really help somebody in that moment move forward, I think is so, so important. And I want to thank you for sharing about your friend as well, because it's not easy. I actually, the date that we're recording this, I had, good old Facebook remind me that my husband and I had lost somebody to suicide. It was actually the officiant of our wedding who was a good friend of my husband. We lost him to suicide, and whew, it's been quite a few years. But just thinking about it, I thought, dang, there's another life that we lost that was trying so hard to overcome the darkness in their life that the darkness was still creeping in. And if we could help one more, if we could spread more initiatives like what you're doing, this grassroots initiative, there's people that care, there's people that want to listen, there's people that want to help. Speaking of people wanting to help, how can people help assist you in this mission that you have? Your mission wanting to help as many veterans and many military members as you can, and just have someone to listen. How can people who are listening to the podcast help you in your mission?
Yeah, so one of the ways that somebody could help is by becoming a mentor. So, because I'm in the Army, a lot of my audience is Army. I have a bunch of Army connections. I would love to get people from all the different branches involved, with Vet Talk. That way, if we do have a Navy SEAL whose crazy story is almost drowning in the ocean, they can have somebody to relate to other than my story back from when I was 7. So that is one way you can help. We do have a donate option on our website as well. So any of the donations that we receive go to helping veterans or putting them into another veteran foundation. So for example, if back to kind of when I was saying, like, one thing that we're trying to do is, pay for counseling if they're having a hard time. Or if we notice that they need more than just venting, if they're like, I really think I have depression. Well, okay, well, if you think you have depression, maybe let's start talking to a counselor because that's out of our field, right? So those donations will go to, okay, this person needs to get into counseling, things like that. If they need to get into a drug alcohol abuse program and they can't afford that. So those are what the donations are there to help for, is just, what do they need? If out of the clothes we get donated, we don't have their shoe size, okay, well, we'll go get you a pair of shoes. So that's what the donations are there for, and that's what helps. Um, Another thing that helps if you want to be involved, but like someone I met, she's like, I want to be on Vet Talk, but I just feel like I'm too old to work the computer. That is perfectly okay. If you just want to tell a story, give some advice, I'll post it to the website as well. Um, I really just I any little thing, so if you want to be involved, those are really, kind of the three ways to help out. And then of course, if you have any information on, how to help me expand or any contact information or, things like that, that's what will help this business grow as well.
I love that. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now that have been through something in their life that can definitely share a story or add to your advice page that'll be coming out soon, and being able to offer any kind of advice to you to grow this, because I think it's really important that we support the initiatives that are helping people. And it's little things like this. Resources are like flavors of ice cream, right? Maybe you've tried one and you're not a big fan of it. Well, guess what? There's so many flavors. So I'm very grateful for your flavor of ice cream and Vet Talk and all the work that you're doing and all the work that you're going to be able to do as you expand this with all the supports that you have already. I think it's absolutely amazing. Well, I want to be able to give you a few minutes to kind of recap some of this stuff. I know we're coming to a close. I always hate ending these conversations because I feel like they're so good and there's so much more we could talk about. But I want to make sure our listeners have some key takeaways and things to remember. And please check out the description. The link is going to be in the description to check out Vet Talk. Pretty easy page to remember, but I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, so if I was to give some key takeaways from what we talked about today, just remember it's a free service, okay? So I think that's one of the big things. It's free, you don't have to pay anything. We're here to help you, we're here to listen to you. Um, so that would be one of the main takeaways. We do offer other services that range from clothing to dog training to service dog training to, insurance to financial, budgeting. So we have that on our website as well. And then we have our advice page again coming out soon that will have advice on there from other veterans and service members that will have statistics on there. And one thing I didn't mention, but is a key takeaway, you do have the option to volunteer or get paid. So if you're someone that, I think it's like if you're 100% disabled, you can't work a job or maybe can't make a certain amount of money, we do have a volunteer option where you can do that as well. We are not licensed therapists. Positions are based off of your availability. So I don't make the schedule. You make your own schedule based off of what you can work.
I love all the work you're doing and all the volunteers that you do have. Just a huge thanks and shout out to everyone involved in Vet Talk. I'm really glad that I got introduced to you this last year and the work you're doing, and I'm happy to support it going forward. So please visit the link below. You can learn more about Vet Talk, how you can become a mentor, share your advice, donate, sign up, and definitely reach out if you have any advice on growing this. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.